Hey guys, so welcome back to today's episode. Today we're going to be talking shoulder mobility. So shoulders for me have been something that I've had to sort of work with over the past sort of best part of 20 years. I dislocated my left shoulder first when I was about 19, 20, playing football, and then I dislocated it a further 2 times when I was Olympic weightlifting, aiming for sort of PB snatches. And then I dislocated my right one when I decided it was a good idea to go and start playing American football at the age of 35. So shoulders for me has always been something that I've had to manage in terms of making sure I'm moving well, and they can get a bit grumpy from time to time. And this band traction drill that I'm going to show you now, or showing you now, is something that I've kind of used over the last sort of 15 years to really sort of maintain my shoulder health and to make sure that I'm not just sort of loading dysfunction and compounding issues. I first got this drill from a guy called Kevin Darby of DTS Education over in Canada, and it's something that I've kind of used pretty much for the whole time ever since. I find it improves my range of motion before I lift, and anyone that sort of followed any of my videos, you know that the warm-up and what we do before we start lifting is actually, in my opinion, way more important than the actual lifting. You want to make sure that you're moving well, moving efficiently before we load it, okay? You don't want to load dysfunction. So one of the things here, it's a traction-based exercise. So how we grip the band or how we hold the band is really important. You want to loop it onto the back of the wrist and then lightly grip over the band. If we grip the band, we're going to create tension in our forearm, tension in our bicep, and actually be sort of not going to get the most out of this movement. We need to make sure that the arm is relaxed. We're allowing the band to do the work to create a little bit of separation in the glenohumeral joint, and then from there we're encouraging length and range of motion through the shoulder. Now, one of the things when it comes to any mobility exercise, any stretch, is that we are encouraging length, not forcing, okay? One of the things I see when people stretch is they put too much of a stretch on. Our muscle tissue and muscles have built-in protections against forcing end range of motion, right? The Golgi tendon organ, if taken to extreme sort of length, will naturally contract the tissue because it's trying to protect us from dislocations and things like that. So we need to be a little bit delicate in terms of how we put tension onto a muscle, and that's why I say you want to encourage length, not force it. So when I see people stretching, if you're seeing a change in facial expressions, wincing, grimacing, generally you're pushing too hard. You want to try and relax into the length of the tissue. Allow yourself to breathe, allow the tissue to relax, allow the joint to become comfortable in that newfound range of motion. So what we do here is essentially we start off with a sort of a traction-based one for the lat. So we're kind of keeping the back nice and straight, sitting into the hamstring, very much a hip hinge. And what I like to do here is we're retracting and then protracting the shoulder to try and encourage that length, allowing the band to kind of pull the arm at length. And then from there we go through a rotation where you're really going to try and take the hip and the shoulder away from each other. So there's kind of a twisting motion that gets a really deep stretch on the lats. Now, one of the things I always say is that you will stretch wherever's tightest for you. So as long as the position looks good and your back straight and you're not hunched over, where you feel it will be where you feel it, okay? Because some people will feel this in very different positions because it's all dependent on where you feel tight. Now for this, I like to go through 5 rotations. With each time, I'm trying to take my fist as far away from my shoulder as possible, allowing the band to kind of traction out my arm, allowing the lat, the tricep complex to really kind of relax and obviously allow for a greater range of motion. Following that, we spin round and we're going to go into the pec stretch. Now I like to do this on one knee. Now the starting point from this position should be a stretch of about a 2 or a 3 out of 10. It should be a position of relaxation, and then we turn the stretch on by leaning forward into it, okay? We hold for 2 to 3 and then we come back. So you're always going in and out of the stretch. If your setup position is too aggressive, you're going to just be stretching the whole time through, and again that's kind of forcing, not encouraging. Right? So once we've done that pec, we're then going to spin round and do the lat behind the head, okay? So again, we're progressing the shoulder through to the more advanced position, which is obviously the final one, where you're going to allow the arm to kind of come behind the head, trying not to kind of, what is natural for some people is to try and pull the elbow back to protect. If you're doing that, the stretch is too aggressive. Move a little bit closer to the band to take a little bit of the stretch off, and then we'll try and relax the arm and lean into it. So I'm trying to lean across to lengthen this whole tricep lat complex around the outside. And what I find here is that, again, maybe I've shown it, or what I'll show you now is that when you do one side, you'll actually see a greater range of motion. The arm can sit a little bit straighter, bicep can a little bit closer to the ear. The other thing I like to add in at the end of this is just some hanging. Hanging is really good for the shoulders. So I like to increase the range of mobility and then just go through a nice 30-second hang. Again, I call this an active hang because I am gripping with my arms, but I'm just trying to really sort of hang nice and symmetrically. And then as you'll see, I do go through some depressing the shoulder blades, so retraction and depression of the shoulder blade, and because those muscles on the lower portion of the shoulder blade are generally quite weak, so allowing the grip to become a bit more efficient in the hang, allowing that traction and decompression of the shoulder joint, and then combining that with a little bit of activation of the lower traps and the scapular depressors. So I find this little sequence, I do this before I go into my cat camels in my warm-up, just get the body moving well before we warm up, before we activate, and then we can get stuck into the main work of the day. Because at the end of the day, it's about making sure that our training program is not just getting us stronger, fitter, faster, but also making sure that we remain healthy, remain sort of injury free, and make sure that we can sort of maintain consistency in training and that we're not breaking down over time. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions about specifics of this, I probably will do a few more videos on shoulder health over the next couple of weeks. But if you have any specifics and you want to ask any specific questions, chuck them in the comments section below. If you want to see how all these videos kind of come together into a program format and you want me to write your programs, I'll put the link to that in the description below as well. So feel free to reach out if you are interested in any coaching. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.